listening to the Nerdy Reads podcast, a hipster goblin media production.
Hey, welcome to the Nerdy Reads podcast. We read nerdy stuff such as sci-fi, fantasy books, comics, manga, and horror. We also discuss all other nerdy things from around the globe. I am one of your hosts, Justin, and with me is my good friend, Robert. What's up, dude?
Justin, what's going on? As always, I'm excited to be here for another episode of the Nerdy Reads podcast. Today's a special episode, but first, if anything Disney does with Star Wars makes them Drake, he must be Kendrick Lamar. It's Dylan!
Wow.
That was a good comparison. I like that.
That was.
A lot.
I'm here for you, dude.
The Acolyte has me big sad right now, low key. So, yeah. I mean, I'm excited to be here, but the Acolyte's making me depressed, so.
One of our favorite things about doing this show is that we consistently get pushed out of our comfort zones and has helped us gain appreciation for genres of storytelling that we have yet to be as into before. Horror and thriller are two genres of storytelling that we only spend a little time exploring outside of a slasher film or two before creating this podcast. And now it is one of our favorites. So today we get an opportunity to spend some time with David Kummer, the author of the story, The Misery House, which we had a chance to check out. So David, we appreciate you being here. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
No, I'm super excited. I've been looking forward to this ever since we set it up. So
awesome. And we're really glad. So we wanted to start a little bit light because we like books. Books is one of our jams. We love to read and check out stories, but we also like to review beverages and food crimes that all these fast food restaurants drop. So first question we have for you is, do you have a go-to beverage in the clutch?
I mean, I drink at least one Dr. Pepper a day. Like on a normal day, it's one, maybe a little over one. That's the go-to for sure.
Oh, dude. So you're one of the people that have brought Dr. Pepper from being like third or fourth favorite beverage to number two. Is it number two now?
Yes, yeah. Number two behind Coke.
Oh, dude.
That's basically all me. I'm like mostly responsible for that, actually.
Yeah, but dude, hey, you heard it here first. It's all because of David. He gets credit for Dr. Pepper's rise.
That's right.
So, David, in the Misery House, I know in the town of New Haven, you specifically focus that there's one restaurant they go to, and it's Dairy Queen, little fast food joint. So was there a reason behind Dairy Queen, and do you just love Dairy Queen? What's your order at Dairy Queen?
That's a heavy hitting question off the bat. That's definitely the only like real restaurant that's in the book. They've got some local places, right? You know, like every little town has its own sports bar, its own pizza place, whatever. Dairy Queen, I think I chose it because I grew up in Madison. So across the river from Madison, they had like a Dairy Queen that had like actual food. Like the one in Madison was only ice cream. Across the river, going to Kentucky, they had a nice little Dairy Queen in Milton. And so I remember like walking across the bridge or driving over there, just sort of like a little small trip, you know, just across the river. And I think in the Misery House, that's sort of what I was looking for. Something that's like a little bit away. You feel like you cross a barrier, right? In the Misery House, they're like right by the interstate, which is the closest you can get. So I think that's why it sort of connected back with something from when I was in high school. Go to order.
Yeah, dude.
So I get whatever like the most chocolatey blizzard I can find is. Every time. And then I don't know, they kind of have like underrated food, like the chicken's not bad, really. I might take Dairy Queen chicken tenders over Popeyes.
Whoa.
Hot take.
I feel like, whoa, that is a hot take, dude. You know, you made Robert set back right there, dude.
I'm gonna cancel the episode right now.
Now it's like,
all right, let's restart.
Now, you said like Popeyes chicken tenders, and their chicken tenders at Popeyes are occasionally like a rubber band, so I'll give you a pass on the tender.
I think I've been unlucky. I've gotten some bad ones over the years.
Yeah, plus you get the white gravy with the old tendies at DQ too. So I mean, you know,
that's right.
I mean, I don't eat that, but that's, you know, I know that's an extra bonus for you folks.
Give you the little piece of toast. Like I'm set.
That dude, it's a whole deal. All right, so we know that you've had Misery House. You recently released another book, The Silent Forest. How has life been recently? Have you been really busy with just the release of that and trying to get out there and move and shake and all that kind of stuff?
So we got out of school. I'm a high school English teacher. We'll get into that. I got out of school about a month ago, and basically ever since then I've been working on book 2, doing release stuff. I had it all written. But, you know, I've had a few events. I had my first signing at Barnes & Noble for this release, so that was really cool. It went well. I've been at a local farmer's market selling books. That's something new I'm trying this year. It's been pretty successful. So just different things like that, a lot of trial and error, figuring out what works well to promote this book. So it's doing about as well as The Misery House, which was my best selling book I've ever had. So far it's about on the same pace in terms of sales, which has been cool. And I've gotten to meet a lot of new readers through the book that actually didn't read book 1 and have seen book 2 and went back to read The Misery House just because they wanted to get to the Silent Forest. So that's been really cool as well.
Which farmers market you doing that at?
Down in New Albany. So I live in New Albany. And then I think I'm going to be at the Jeffersonville one coming up next month. So I'm trying to hit a lot of the different local spots.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. You mentioned that you're a teacher. So like, how do you balance teaching and then authoring a book and then releasing the book? Like, how's that all work for you?
So the balance is I just do it all on breaks, basically, in terms of writing. I'm really not good. I just finished up my second year, so I'm not quite at the point where I can like focus fully on teaching and write a book at the same time. I can like edit a book at the same time. So like if I write book 3 this summer, I can edit it during the school year, do some promotion stuff, figure all that out. But I haven't found a way to do both writing and teaching at the same time yet. I can do like short stories, short books, but like a full novel, it's kind of be like its own thing in the summer, really. Yeah.
So how long have you been teaching?
So I just finished up my second year at Jeff High. It's been really good. This was an amazing year. Honestly, we've got about a month left until school, and this is the first time this summer where I'm like, I'm kind of ready to go back. Like, I think I'm ready to get back into it. So it's always good when you get to that point. And you're like, I feel recharged. I feel refreshed.
That's really awesome. All right, man. So we looked at your website. We see that you rate movies and you share that on your website. And so while I was scrolling through your reviews, you gave A Quiet Place a 9.5 out of 10, which is a super, super solid score. Very, very good. So I want to ask you this. Let me ask you a question. This has to do with our boy up there, D Pope, sweet baby Dylan. Would you recommend that someone, he unmuted his mic, he's ready. Would you recommend someone take their second date to the theaters to see and view this film and chew popcorn in their ear the entire duration? Because our boy Dylan did that and he never heard from her again. David.
The Quiet Place is that would honestly be one of the most difficult date movies because it is like, I don't know. I saw it in theaters. I don't know if I can remember any other movie that's like that silent for such a majority of the movie. Like it's crazy. I mean, it's not even like half of the film. You feel like it's the majority of the time. There's like no sound in this big theater. So it's like, it's a little bit awkward.
Don't get popcorn.
No, my popcorn bucket hit the ground when I was in theaters for that movie. As soon as I was done, I'm that guy. I'm like, it's packed theater. Everyone's hyped for this. Popcorn noises all around us, and everyone just stopped eating their popcorn.
Yeah. Right.
Not Dylan.
Listen.
I mean, it's movie theater popcorn is hard to resist. I can't blame them.
Yeah.
I didn't buy any popcorn. I can tell you that. But so this was popcornless. We were the only people in the theater. Ooh. So you can only imagine how silent it was and awkward. It was not a great experience for
poor Dylan. It wasn't a great experience for her either. Sorry.
We're dead traumatizing Dylan. Do you have like an overall favorite horror movie, or like could you give us say top 3 horror movies of the last, let's go 5 years?
Last 5 years. I definitely can. I'll have to think on that for a minute. Sure. So you mentioned like, that's maybe one of the worst horror movie date movies. What would be like the best then? What's like, what are characteristics that make like a great horror movie date movie?
I think anything where my wife's going to reach over and like grab my arm to feel safe. So like Paranormal Activity, 1 or 2, some jump scares.
I didn't know what I was getting into though.
Right. So you want it to be effective. You want it to be a little scary. Yeah. That makes sense.
Dude, I just recently watched Smile, and that movie has some nice little moments in it. Yeah.
I mean, I think lately, like, and so you asked, like, what are like the best recent horror movies, right? I think anything by Jordan Peele, like, I really like to know Get Out, Us. I mean, he's like 3 for 3 so far.
I agree with you 100%. I don't go to the theaters often, and it's mostly horror movies that get me there. And I was at the theater at least 3 times for Nope. Went with my buddies, went with my wife, and I went back again with one of my buddies. Fantastic theater experience. I'll shout out The Black Phone was a good one. And Last Night in Soho, if you want to consider that thriller horror.
That was the next one. That was the next one I was going to mention. I saw that in theaters too. Very, very happy I did. I think that was a good experience. That might be one of the best horror movie date movies, I think.
All right, so we checked out Misery House and your website, and you have a gift and what appears to be a passion for the thriller horror genre. What drove you to write these types of stories?
So, I mean, I think it started out for sure in like middle school, high school. I mean, I was just watching and consuming a ridiculous amount of horror movies, get through 3 or 4 a week, some good, some terrible, a lot of them from Netflix. Just kind of burning through anything I could find. So I think at a certain point, I was also reading mystery thrillers, that kind of stuff, but I couldn't really find any books that really matched the movies that I liked. I would like books for like the mystery aspect, but I couldn't find any books that really had like that gothic thriller feel or like effective supernatural stuff. So I think that's what I set out to do, really, was like, how can I write something that feels like a blockbuster horror movie? Then over the years, my goals have changed a little bit, and I've gone more towards mystery, more towards suspense, depending on the novel. But that's definitely what I started out trying to do.
So are there any other genres that you're interested in writing?
Yeah. So when I first started, I started trying to publish books in 2016. So like I was early in high school, freshman, sophomore. And so I dabbled a little bit with like a fantasy novel. I dabbled a little bit with like more literary fiction. I do have one literary fiction novel called Everything Somewhere. Like I said, I grew up in Madison, and so it's basically set in Madison. I just changed some of the names of the places. But besides those two, I've definitely stuck with like horror, mystery, thriller, and I think it's nice because there's a pretty wide spectrum. You can have 2 novels that are both horror novels, but have like totally different vibes on different ends of the spectrum. So it's still definitely, I feel like I have a lot of room to work with in the same genre.
Sure. Just go ahead and share with us a little bit and our listeners about the Misery House. And we have some questions about that story, but we want to keep this thing spoiler free that our friends listening will buy the book. So if you're cool with it, could you give us a little bit of a rundown on that story and what people need to know? Yeah,
so the Mystery House and the Misery House. I just said the wrong title of my own book.
I might have said Mystery House and threw you off. My bad, man. Misery House. Wow.
I should have practiced my lines. But no, okay. So the Misery House and the whole trilogy is about one family, and it's told from their point of view. So you have mom, dad, son, daughter. And they live just outside this small town called New Haven. New Haven has sort of the abandoned haunted house, which is kind of a trope in the genre for sure. But what I really wanted to do with this trilogy is take a lot of those tropes and twist them and flip them on their heads and do some unique stuff with them. So like in the description for the Misery House, right, I was looking back at this the other day. It says a haunted house like you've never seen before. And I think that's true in book 1, but I think as this trilogy goes on, that's something I'm really hammering into even more. I want this haunted house to be like something that you've never seen before. And I think by the end of the trilogy, and probably a little bit by the end of book 1, most people would agree with that. Besides the haunted house, though, there's a lot of creepy things going on in the town. At its core, it's really a mystery novel. You have, people going missing, people dying. At the very beginning of the book, a shop burns down, a local shop, and there's a tragic death there. So at its core, the trilogy's a mystery novel, but it's also about this family and a lot of the stuff that they're going to go through, because they're definitely the epicenter of all of the supernatural, scary stuff happening to this town.
I actually, I finished The Misery House, and I will attest to your statement that it is a haunted house unlike any I've read before. I'm really interested to dive into book 2. You hooked me on book 1. I'm definitely jumping into book 2. And I guess you kind of answer this with the Dairy Queen thing. So is it safe to say that the town of New Haven was inspired by like Madison, Indiana, or another small town, just that vibe you grew up in?
Right. Yeah. So I think in terms of the vibe, It's definitely inspired by like other small towns that I've lived in or grew up in. I think the thing with New Haven is that it's even smaller and more isolated than any place I've lived in. And so you very much have that sense of community where like everybody knows each other in town, but they also know each other's secrets. And so there's a lot of tension that arises from that. Even apart from the main mystery, you have, local people that are have prejudice, or you have local people that are just a little bit crazy. And so there's a lot of different angles where the tension and the mystery comes in from.
Did you plan on this thing being a series?
Yeah, so definitely I had planned on this being a trilogy from the time I started writing book one. And so if you get to the end of book one and you're like, what the heck? It's a trilogy. Book two is out now. You can't hold it against me.
We were, but that's okay.
Well, there was one moment at the end that I'm not going to speak on. I'm going to ask you after the show, but something happened at the end of the first one. I was like, hold on, man. And then all right, I got book two.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, when I was trying to do the press stuff for the Misery House last summer, people were like not thrilled about some of it, but now it's okay because book two is out, and I think it's even better than book one. But yeah, it's going to be a trilogy, hard and fast. Like I'm really putting a stop at book three. I kind of already know what's going to happen at the end. There's a prequel short story it's only available on Kindle, but it's about, I want to say like 60, 70 pages. And it's sort of set in like 1920. So it's about 70, 80 years before the Woods family even exists. So I have that little prequel short story, but the main books are definitely going to be 1, 2, 3 and done.
We all are from like, say, the Louisville, Kentucky area, and something big over here is Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember being younger, we would go over there, and before they monopolized it and you pay to go there, people would sneak in. That was the thing. You wanted, hoping to see something. And I've done like various ghost tours there. My wife and I and some friends, we actually paid the money to do the overnight stay. It was definitely creepy. So if I lived in New Haven, I'm the dumb going into the abandoned house. Are you going into the abandoned house? Like if you're in New Haven with your friends, is this like, I dare you, I double dog dare you, you going into the house?
That's, first of all, overnight in Waverly Hills. Like that's braver than I would be. Which kind of leads into my second answer. I would definitely go up to the house. Going inside the house is a little bit iffy. It depends on the extenuating circumstances. But I could probably be convinced. Also, if it's like the middle of the day, then yeah, probably. If it's like 11 p.m. at night, I'm probably going back down the hill.
We saw recently, and I think you shared this on your Facebook too, that you had some books that were kind of climbing the charts on, what was that, Amazon and all that. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of share with us how that feels and what that's looked like for you and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've had a little bit of success in the past. The Misery House was my first book I've ever had that got to number one in its category, which is it's in a decently competitive category. So that basically means if it gets to number one, it's in the top 7,000 books on Amazon, roughly 7,000. And the Misery House was the first one to ever do it for me. It has sold over 2,000 copies now since it came out. It's been a lot of fun. The Silent Forest comes out last month, and so I had a little bit of tempered expectations because I'm like, well, book two, it probably won't sell as much because not everyone from book one's going to go on to read the sequel. A little bit harder to market. But it actually got to number one in its category and has stayed there for a couple of weeks now. And at one point I had Silent Forest at number two, and I had the Misery House at number one, or maybe flip-flops, but I had number one and two in the same category. So that was another first for me. That was the same weekend as my Barnes & Noble signing, I think. So I was checking off all the boxes. I was like, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. It's nice when the hard work and the advertising and everything actually pays off for sure.
Heck yeah. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
So if, say the Misery House, you're a fan of horror movies, if this movie were to be made into a movie, do you have like a dream cast? Who's playing the Woods family?
I
just put you on the spot.
That's what we do here, bro. Told you, man. Pressing questions.
No, you're right. Let me think. I'm going to go back to, we talked about Last Night in Soho. This is not the Woods family, but I think one of the main girls from that would be great for Allison. In terms of, let me think, Kaya. Who would play Kaya? That's kind of a tricky one. I just watched Challengers. I can just say Zendaya. That would be a fit for sure. Yeah, that's a hard question. Casting is so difficult for me. Like when I write the characters, I have an image in mind, but I really have to find like a random Google image that fits with like what I'm looking for and kind of stick with that in mind. Which sometimes it ends up being close to like a modern day actor or whatever, and sometimes it's just like some random thing I found on Google. I just got it in a Google Doc. It's a good question though. I'll have to think on that a little bit.
Sure. Do you have any characters that you've ever written in your books of like that's based on a person you knew in real life?
I mean, every villain, no.
All your students.
I told some of them this last year. I was like, you're going to find your way into one of my books. I can't promise where or how. But, no, there's definitely been a few times. I think a lot of the characters are like a amalgamation of different people. So I have like this person's personality traits or this person's interests, things like that. So I think most characters are sort of like a puzzle of different people that I know, or even just like other characters I've read. It's a lot of like picking and choosing and fitting together the best way I can get it to work for the story.
In the About Me section at the end of Misery House, you mentioned you're an indie rock fan, and we discuss music quite a bit on this show. Share with us and our friends listening like bands we should check out. What's on your playlist?
Okay, awesome. So I just went to a music festival in Tennessee, actually, a couple weeks ago, Bonnaroo. So I saw Geese. They're a big, kind of a smallish band that I'm a big fan of. We saw Cage the Elephant. That's like a classic. They were one of the people there. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers for the first time, which I didn't expect to like them that much. I know like a couple of their songs, but they were pretty good live, more than I expected for sure.
It hurts me that they're considered dad rock now.
Oh no, they're firmly, not considered dad rock. They're firmly dad rock.
Yeah, they are definitely. I mean, they're Pearl Jam dad rock. I mean, they're right there, bro. They're all
They've been dad rock for a while.
I know, dude. It pains me because when I was in high school, they were the thing. I
like Kings of Leon and the Killers a lot, and I feel like they're slowly starting to slide into that category too.
Oh yeah, they definitely are, bro. It's not slow, dude. They're on the avalanche. They're falling right in.
They really are. Right here. No, I've seen the Killers the most times out of any band though, just because I think every time I go they deliver. So you guys said you're a local-ish. Houndmouth is a local band from New Albany. I like them a lot. Saw them in Louisville last year. A little more folksy, but I like them.
Yeah, I used to work with the dude who played bass for them for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, at a restaurant. So yeah. I mean, like we were cool, but like not best buddies. But he wouldn't give me free tickets now. I wish that'd be cool. If you're a listener of this show, bro, we'll take them.
That's right. We're going to Bourbon and Beyond again this summer or this fall. So I've got a few people there. I want to check out like Mount Joy, the National War on Drugs. Very excited for all those.
That's cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really cool. Are you as big a Coheed fan as Watson and us? Do you like Coheed?
I'm not as big of fans for sure. I've tried to get into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe I needed to add it to my list. I am trying to find more stuff to listen to now that I'm done with Bonnaroo, kind of in between festivals. I'm trying to branch out a little bit more. Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to ask you this question. So we are very new in the audiobook world. So I think when we both started this podcast, neither one of us did audiobooks. And then as we've done the podcast, our first one was Holly, the Stephen King book, and the narration in that was like crazy good, and so now we have a nice blend of where we do a lot of listening to audiobooks, and we still do the physical and read the books and stuff. But I wanted to ask you this. Let's say you could pick a narrator to narrate your books, maybe this series. Let's go with the Misery House and Silent Forest series. Who would you choose? Who would you like to work with as a narrator for one of your books?
That's a tough question as well. I don't know a lot of the narrators off the top of my head. So there was a book I listened to a couple of years ago that had really one of the better like narrators that I can remember, and it was called Shotgun Love Songs. It's like I don't even know what kind of genre you put it in. It's like a coming of age story. It definitely has like a psychological thriller aspect to it at times. But a fun fact about that, the guy who wrote it went to high school or college with Bon Iver. And so there's a character in the novel who's like kind of like a disgraced rock musician kind of guy, but he's based on Bon Iver, like very, very loosely. But that was a cool one. And the narrator from that did a really good job. I think the hard thing with one narrator is that you have to be able to do right. To do like mom, dad, son, daughter. It's hard to hit all of those, I think. I don't know. I've never looked into audiobooks too much because they're a little bit expensive to like produce, right? Like get it made for my book. Because I could theoretically pretty easily, it would just be money. So I think at one point that will definitely be something I'll get into more. And maybe this trilogy will be the first thing to do it with. I don't know.
That'd be awesome. Be really cool.
You might be able to save some money if you ask a close friend to do it for you. Like, I don't know, Eric Watson.
That's right.
Would he not be an amazing audio?
Oh, dude, he would.
He would enjoy it so much too.
Yeah, dude. That dude can get in character too, bro. He can make it happen.
Oh yeah. No, I teach across the hallway from him. I've heard some voices.
That's hilarious.
Every once in a while, I got to just stop and kind of peek in. And I'm like, what is going on in there?
I love that.
Some type of learning for sure. They're definitely learning.
Dude, if somebody were to check out David Kummer works for the first time, like what's a recommended jumping on point? Would it be The Misery House, or do you have like another book of yours you've authored that you recommend they start there?
Yeah, so I definitely think The Misery House is what I would push, because then you can just jump to The Silent Forest and you can wait for book 3 to come out. If you're wanting to go into like the back catalog a little bit, I wrote a very short book called Home that I'm pretty proud of. It's like 90, 100 pages. Like it's very short. It can fit in your pocket. But it's sort of like a metaphysical thriller. I wrote it after my grandpa died, and so the context of the story is really I think I was a senior in high school at that point. I was sort of processing grief for the first time and trying to do it through fiction. And I think what came out of it is a pretty cool, thoughtful story. It's definitely, like I said, it's very metaphysical. So it's not your like typical chronological. It's not very much like an A to Z. You might be confused about a few things, but at the end of it still, but it's on purpose. And I definitely think that's one that I look back on now, even like 5 years later, 5 or 6, something 7. And I'm like, wow, like I'm pretty happy with how that went, which is not true for all my books. There's been a couple books that I published in high school that I've had to go back and delete from the internet.
I get it, man. I get it. We had to go through YouTube and scrub YouTube before we launched the show because we were like, we kept finding things that we were doing like years ago. We're like, yeah, we don't need that out in the wide open space.
Yeah. Stuff just old video game clips, or like we have a fantasy basketball league. It's like, yeah, let's get rid of all of this.
Yeah, let's get rid of all this stuff.
Right. I mean, it's because everything is so public, and you're still trying to figure out how to do it the right way. It happens.
So we have a lot of listeners who aspire to be writers, or they're interested in the writing process. And oftentimes when we ask people, we're like, hey, we're going to be interviewing this author. Do you have anything that you want us to ask? This tends to be one that comes up. And so it's been cool because we've heard back from people. My brother's one of those people who has come back when we've talked to an author, and he's like, man, that really influenced me or inspired me to try this thing. And so can you share with us a little bit about how you work, what your process is in writing a book? Kind of just walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if I was starting right now, day one, like trying to be an author, I would make it a point to try to write every day as much as possible. So like, not like, if you miss a couple of days, it's not the end of the world, but definitely trying to make it into a habit, doing some writing every day, doing some reading every day, whatever you can fit into your schedule. And then I also think, whatever you write first, you want it to be whatever's like whatever you're most excited to write. So if you're like, well, this genre would sell better, just stick with what you really want to do and what's going to get you excited for it. Because the hardest thing with writing is getting through the first draft. I mean, I've got to tell myself, I'm trying to write a whole book in the next 4 weeks, basically, before school starts. Going to, we'll see. But I kind of have to tell myself as I'm going through the first draft, I'm like, it's not good, but it's not supposed to be good. It's the first draft. You have to get it done at some point, so just get it done. And I think that's the hardest thing when you're a new author, because you do your first draft and then you compare it to whatever the best-selling book on Amazon is, and you're like, oh well, this is nothing like that. But it's probably not going to be like that anyway, because it's your first time, and also it's your first draft. That book's first draft was probably a lot worse than the final draft is. You would hope, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think just trying to kind of pushing through that initial self-doubt is a big deal. And then once you get it done, there's a whole nother list of stuff to do, right? You want to get an editor, you want to get other people to read it for you, tell you how to make it better. But even just finishing that first draft, if you do nothing with it, it gives you a little bit of a boost for sure. And you're going to be like 10 times a better author at the end of the book when you write the end than you are at the beginning of it. And trying to enjoy that process, right? It's kind of a cliche, but say, oh, it's about the journey. I think when you're writing a book, it really is, because the book's going to change as you write it. You're going to change as you write it. And whatever happens with it afterward, I mean, it's there. You did it. It's a book. That's an accomplishment that a lot of people do aspire to. So, and if you don't want to do a book, short stories are a lot of fun too. Sometimes you can write, a short story in a week, and that's great practice for whatever you're trying to build up to. I mean, that's really what I did. Was I started writing short stories. I tried to write like a collection of short stories that sort of went together semi-chronologically. And then eventually I was like, okay, well, let's just do a novel. So I think if you're, struggling with writer's block or even just getting started, short stories are a great way to kind of bust through that initially.
Have you had any short stories that you've produced that have turned into something a little bit bigger later?
Yeah, I a couple times. Yeah, I've had stories that ended up being either just longer short stories or sort of like the jumping off point for a novel. Or what usually happens is I'll have a short story, and then this has happened a few times actually. I've had a short story, and then I'm like, what if we try to like rework it and fit it into this novel? So switch out the characters, do whatever. So I've done that a few times as well, and that's kind of fun to see how different characters react in the same situation, basically.
Yeah, that's cool.
Say you're at a bar and you can have a drink with any author, living or dead. Who would it be?
My favorite book I've ever read is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. They actually made kind of like I guess it wasn't a low budget movie. Kind of looked like a low budget movie, but I think that would be cool just to talk about that one book. But overall, I think Mark Edwards is one I'm a big fan of. He's been publishing for 15, 20 years. He's kind of one of the first big mystery thriller authors that I was like really into. And one of the only authors that I'll read like every new release that they come out, because I really don't read a lot of like this author consistently, over and over again. I just read The Road by Cormac McCarthy. That would be a conversation for sure. I don't know how I would feel at the end of it, but that would be a fun one as well.
Do you have, I know that's who you go and you hang out with at the bar, but do you have like some people that you're like, hey, these are some pretty big influences in my life as far as writing goes? And
yeah, so there's a thing in writing where they say, and anytime you write something, you have someone in mind that's going to read it, whether they do or not. You have like one particular person. And for me, ever since I've started writing, that's been my dad. Even when I was like back in middle school, like scribbling in a notebook, he's read everything I've ever written, and he's almost always been the first one to read it and sort of give me that feedback. But the other helpful thing is that he actually gives like legitimately good feedback, so it kind of kills two birds with one stone. But no, he's always the first one to read it. I also think I'm influenced a lot by setting. So like I said, I had a book that was set in Madison, literally, and now that I live in New Albany, besides the Misery House trilogy, I feel like rivers pop up everywhere in my books. So one of my next projects is I'm just going to lean into it fully. I want to write a book that's basically set in New Albany. Maybe a little bit dystopian. We might get a little weird with it, but taking the core idea of wherever I live and doing that. I guess it definitely works on like a smaller level too, though. In the Misery House, the Woods family has a house, right? And it's sort of away from the town, and it's sort of a calm, safe place. They have the big back porch. They have the big fields in front of them. And that's basically like copy and paste my grandma's house, which is sort of was a place like that for me at one point, kind of a calm, safe place. So I think that's one of my favorite things about writing is taking real life places or real life people and sort of twisting them around and then putting them in the book. And then it's like a piece of me that I put in there, basically.
Yeah. Well, just in that same vein of that influence and what's inspired you to do that, what inspired you to take the step into teaching?
So ever since I was in about the middle, towards the end of high school, I kind of was thinking about being a teacher. It was one of my ideas. And then once I went to college and I started taking some of the education classes, I was kind of like, this is just 100% where I'm supposed to be at. The first year was incredibly hard. I feel like it's one of the hardest jobs I could have chosen, but I also feel like if it was any easier, it would be less rewarding. And it's also like the most rewarding thing I think I could be doing. So it's, that's one of the things that gets me out of bed every day is it's like, well, I'm actually doing something that will make a difference, long term. I'm not just clock in, clock out. I'm really more invested in it. And so it's made the last 2 years just an incredible experience. I've met so many amazing like students through it, kids that honestly just blow my mind with their creativity and their work ethic and all this kind of stuff. Like the opposite of the bad rap that kids get a lot nowadays. And so getting to meet those people, it's just, it's like, wow, it's a genuinely amazing person that I got to connect with and I got to mentor, 180 days a year. So it's been a lot of fun. I think the connections that I've made with other faculty and other staff and just people around the city has also been a big bonus. But I'm definitely in it because it's rewarding.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Thanks for what you do, dude.
No, I'm honestly happy to do it. With teaching freshmen. I don't know if Watson has mentioned this, but people are like, "Oh, you teach freshmen? They're the worst." And I kind of right now, at least, I feel like it's the opposite.
Sure.
I feel like I'm fairly young. I'm 23, and so I feel like being 23 teaching seniors, I'd be a little bit iffy. I'm like, well, this is I think how the world works. But with freshmen, we can kind of have fun and be a little more loose, and we're really just going through literature together and learning about stuff together. Which is such a cool thing to do, to see like the moment they read a short story and it really connects with them. It's the best.
Yeah, that's cool. You have any kids that pick up your books?
I've had a few, yeah. Especially this last year for whatever reason. I had a handful that were like, "Oh, you wrote a book?" Because I have them on the back shelf in our class. They were like, "I'm going to read it," and I was like, "No, you're not. You don't read." And then they went and they read the whole book, and I was like, "All right." I mean, I was like, "When's the last time you read a book?" And they were like, "I don't know, probably like 2 or 3 years ago." And I'm like, if this gets you to read, I will keep writing books just for you to read them, whatever I have to do.
That's cool.
I had kids because The Silent Forest came out after school ended. So like the last 2 weeks of school, I had a few kids that were like, "Do you have like the copies of the book yet today? Like I need to get one before summer break." So that was also that was cool. Because I remember being a kid and being like, I can't wait to get this book and read it over summer break and do the library reading program and all that stuff. So the idea that they're getting like kind of a taste of that was really impactful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, I can count on one hand the number of times my son has met a teacher without me prompting him. And he spoke highly of you. He actually said he missed you when he left your class to go to honors English, dude. So you saying you feel like you're where you're supposed to be, you impacted my son, dude. I appreciate you.
That's sweet. I'm glad he had a good experience for sure.
All right. So this next question, this is for your students, really. So we need to get some tea, something hot off the press. What is something that people do not know about you? The worst thing.
Let me go down the list real quick. Something people don't know about me. I'm pretty good at basketball. Honestly, I played all through high school.
Okay.
I can, pretty much any 5-on-5, like as long as my team's good, of course, I can hold my own.
Sure.
I'm a big runner, even more than I was in high school now. Something about those kids, they get me a little stressed out. So it's nice to be able to go home and run, 3, 4, 5 miles more if I'm feeling crazy.
When you're playing basketball, are you a facilitator? Or are you a spot shooter? What are you doing?
Oh,
what
no.
Position you playing, bro?
Like my strategy is like 3 and D, 3 in defense, but without the defense part, just shoot through.
There you go.
Who's your team, college and professional?
Oh, Louisville, 100% college. Football, basketball, whatever. 1,000%. We have season tickets to football.
Is that where you went?
I did not. No, I went to Hanover College, so actually up
okay.
in Madison. But I've been a Louisville fan since I was like breathing.
There you go.
As far as professional teams go, I watch a lot of it. I'm not super invested. Like NBA, I watch less of than anything else. I've been getting into baseball a little bit. I've been following the Reds the last couple of years. And then NFL it really changes. Like my mom's a Colts fan, so I like when the Colts do good just because she's really happy and invested and into it. I like the Ravens for Lamar as long as he's there. I was watching anywhere Teddy Bridgewater went. I was rooting for them. So my NFL rooting is definitely based on Louisville players and where they end up.
Yeah, dude, you could just follow Donovan Mitchell in the NBA.
That's right. Yeah, and
he's cold.
Fairly local now too, over in Cleveland. So he's been a fun story.
So let me ask you this: what are your thoughts on Kentucky fans? And Robert is a Kentucky fan, so I really want to see people fight right now.
Wow.
Where's the leave studio button?
Yeah. I didn't want to bring it up. I was trying to stay in the shadows, but Justin busted my head. But Reed Shepherd just got picked 3rd overall in the NBA draft. I don't know if that's an accomplishment for Reed Shepherd or how weak this draft class is this year. But shout out Reed Shepherd.
That's exciting. I'm just happy. Well, I'm very happy that we have a new coach. I'm excited that Louisville, Kentucky men's basketball both have new coaches. I feel like that's gonna be good, and it at least gives me a little bit of hope that we can win maybe once in the next 5 years. Would be nice. We'll see.
I feel John Calipari was like Louisville's kryptonite for a decade or more. Yeah.
No, I'm calling it now. We've got you guys in football though, and I hope you've enjoyed the last 4 or 5 years because you're done.
This is making me very happy right now.
It's in Lexington this year, so I don't know if I can go because I might get in trouble. But you're done for.
It's overdue, man. We're, tired of winning over here.
It's so overdue. It's not even funny.
All right, man. So we're gonna have a new segment that we're gonna start right now. We actually did it one time before, but this is called the Great Debate. Dylan's gonna run it. It's gonna be a this or that. We need to see where you stand, and it's gonna settle some things between all of us here in this room. So,
wonderful.
Dylan, go ahead and take the mic. It's your time to shine, my dude.
Listen, don't let the name fool you, okay? It may say debate, but there are only right and wrong answers to these questions. Okay. So, here at the Nerdy Reads podcast, we like to do a little thing called walking to the fridge, okay? So imagine you're walking to the fridge and you're wanting a beverage. Are you picking Coke or are you picking Pepsi?
Oh, what's wrong with my fridge? Is this my house?
You're at Justin's house.
All right, we're leaving. Anything. If it's got to be those, I'm definitely like rummaging through his cabinets and finding a glass and finding his ice maker, and pouring it in a glass. But I think we're going with Pepsi.
Oh man!
All right, interesting. Interesting.
Oh for one.
Dylan's response made it feel wrong.
I know earlier in the show you said Dr. Pepper, so that one, honestly, that I'll give you a pass on that one.
Sure.
So this next one, I think you kind of already answered as well earlier in the show, but Star Wars or Star Trek?
Definitely Star Wars. I would prefer if we can like cut it off at 2005 or whenever that was.
I like this guy.
But No, yeah. But even if we don't, even if it's like all of it, I'll probably say Star Wars, and then I'll just pretend like it didn't happen.
Yep, that's what I do. That's
part of that's because I'm just lazy and I don't want to keep up with all of it. Like my time for Star Wars is limited. But I did go back and rewatch the first 6 recently, and I saw the Phantom Menace in theaters when they put it back out for the 20th anniversary or whatever. And that was a lot of fun. I'm definitely, anytime those are in theaters again, I'm going to make it a point to go, because I'm too young. I didn't get to see any of them in theaters. Yep. So I'm making it a point to go back and see anytime any of those are in theaters, I'm going to see them.
I respect it. I took my kids to see episode 1 in theaters for the 20th anniversary as well. And I'm like real hyped on it. And I look over and here's my teenager gone, sleeping. He woke up for the pod racing and was locked in after that.
No, honestly though, not to cut you off, but the pod racing was like, it's one of the best scenes I've seen on a movie theater screen. Like it kind of blew me away. I've seen that scene 25 times before, and I was still like, wow, that hits different.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not quite old enough to where I was able to see those in the theater, so I was very happy whenever I was able to see the Phantom Menace in theaters, and then I will definitely continue to watch them as they release. Hopefully,
I wanted to go see Revenge of the Sith, like the dark one. I wanted to see that in theaters, but I was like 5, and my parents, I guess, thought that it wasn't appropriate. So I hold it against them a little bit, even though I would not.
All right. So this next one, there might be some debate. I'll allow a little bit of lenience in the debate department on this one. So, are you a Lord of the Rings kind of guy or a Harry Potter kind of guy?
That's a tough one. Growing up, I was definitely Harry Potter. Like I read all the books multiple times, watched all the movies. I did get to see the last few in theaters. I think now though, I would go with Lord of the Rings. I've read the books, I've watched the movies. I tried to watch the Amazon Prime show. I'll probably go back and try it again. It just wasn't the right time for me. But I think I'll go with Lord of the Rings. I saw one of those in theaters too when they put it back out pretty recently with my dad. So that was cool.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say that I feel like David's winning right now.
I'm a big fan of the whatever they call it, like the flashback cinema stuff. Like anytime they put like the older movies, even if old is like 2005, like I'll eat that up. So I'm keeping an eye out for all that locally.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have a theater local to us that does that type of stuff. They just had Order of the Phoenix, I believe it was, flashback a couple weekends ago.
David.
He's on a first name basis now.
Are you a Marvel guy or a DC kind of guy?
Yikes. This is kind of like the Coke and Pepsi question, honestly. For a few years, I was on what I called my Marvel boycott because I just got so tired of them. I mean, I have to go with DC just because I think if I were to like rank all the superhero movies, they'd have the top 4 or 5 probably. Like the Dark Knight trilogy, I don't know if anything's going to beat that. But then like Spider-Man, I like Spider-Man a lot, but really besides that, I'm not a big Marvel guy. So I'll choose DC really just for the Dark Knight.
Who's your favorite live action Spider-Man?
Tobey Maguire. 100%.
Oh my!
Oh man!
No, there's not even close. Really.
No debate.
Are you a Tom Holland hater too, like Dylan?
Not as much as I was like 5 or 6 years ago, because I've seen him in some other movies and I've been like, okay, I kind of get it. Like he's a good actor. But no, I definitely go with Tobey Maguire.
Hey, at least you can say that. Dylan will give Tom Holland no respect whatsoever in anything.
That's how I was when those movies first started coming.
When Tom does something that deserves respect, he'll get respect. Next. Are you a Sega kind of guy or a Nintendo kind of guy?
I like Sega just for like the retro vibes. Right now I have a PlayStation 5. I don't think that's either of those, right?
But that's okay. I mean, if you only have one current modern system, that is the one to have.
It is true.
we do have a Switch, so I guess I have more Nintendo right now. But I have good memories with Sega for sure.
I get that.
Dude, that is you may be the only person we've ever asked that question that said Sega. You are the first. Bravo.
Hey, original, bro. He's original.
It's just for the vibes. That's it.
It's that music from Sonic Adventure 2.
I don't even know where I would buy one now if I wanted to, but I can find one.
So, Dave. Can I call you Dave? I'm going to call you Dave.
You can call me Mr. Kummer.
So, we've talked about on the show that you are obviously a horror fan. So we're going to get a little bit of your opinion on some horror writers. Are you like an R.L. Stine kind of guy or like a Stephen King kind of guy?
I like a few. I really like a few Stephen King books, but the majority of them I definitely cannot get into. And I'm like, I don't know if this is slander. I don't think he writes his own books anymore. I think he's got multiple ghostwriters.
Oh boy,
he's not the only one. He's not the only one. But so
he's the Drake of the horror world. No.
You said it, not me.
We heard it here first.
So I'm going to go with R.L. Stine. Also, I feel like I know a lot of students who that's like one of the things they can say they've read somewhat recently. Like his books have a little bit of staying power, I think, with younger people. So I'll choose him for that. And of course, the old Goosebumps creepy TV show, like that's a classic.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They did a good job with the new TV show, dude. My youngest son still asks me when it's coming back.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
All right, so Mr. Kummer.
I'm glad you're correct this time.
Are you a video game kind of? Are you like a fan of video games at all?
Yeah, I am. It's going to be glaringly obvious. I have some holes in what I'm familiar with, but I know enough, I think.
Okay, all right. That's all right. So if you had to pick, would you choose like Silent Hill or more like a Resident Evil?
Ooh.
Probably Resident Evil. I think that's what I would go with. It's not a very wide gap though for me.
Yeah. I actually expect you to say Silent Hill a little bit because it's more of that psychological horror going on.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, Resident Evil is, which one still has new games coming out? Okay.
That's true.
There it is.
Well, Silent Hill's been trying to release a game for however many years, and they keep canceling, restarting, whatever they're doing.
Hey, Silent Hill 2 remake's coming out October of this year.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with Resident Evil, though. No. That's for sure.
They're on remake number 4, so...
There you go. David, man, we appreciate you, dude. You've been so gracious with your time. We have one final question. And this is a doozy. Okay. This will determine whether or not we ever do a return episode.
I'm so ready.
We regularly discuss aliens, chupacabras, Bigfoot, Nessie. We have something we do called Sighting of the Week where we find some sort of video or article and we determine whether or not we believe it's real. Okay. And so, do you believe in the existence of any of these things? Is there anything that you're like, I'm a Bigfoot guy, I'm an alien guy, any of that kind of stuff?
So I don't think there's anything that I'm like 100% sold on. I think the two things that I could be talked into, or like depending on the week, I'm like, oh, I kind of get that. It's a fun thought experiment. Definitely, like I think aliens is one. I'm like, I could see it. I think sure. I get it. And then like maybe not exactly ghosts, but like something supernatural. I think it's appealing to me for various reasons. But then I also think there's a little bit of an argument for it for sure. So ghosts are number one on that list. I would say things that I would say I do believe in from time to time, and it kind of changes. Honestly, I'm not very much set one way or the other.
Pretty open to it though. So if you saw a Nessie lake picture, you're like maybe.
Yeah, definitely open.
Heck
to it.
yes.
All right, bro. You can come back. You can come back and hang with us.
Good. That had me nervous on there.
All you have is Coke or Pepsi. He doesn't want to come back, dude.
We'll have Dr. Pepper next time.
That's right. What is this refreshment table?
Yeah, I know, right? Right. So, David, man, Watson had a lot of good things to say about you and that you're a friend of his. Well, we consider you a friend of ours too now. We wish you all the best, man. We encourage all our listeners to go check out David's work. David, where can they find you at, dude?
So, davidkummer.com, that's Kummer. That's sort of my main website, my movie reviews, like we talked about before. Besides that, all my books are available on Amazon, and most of them are available on Barnes & Noble. Although if you go to my website, I found this new website recently. You guys can tell me if you've heard of it. It's called, I think, bookshop.com maybe. And their whole thing is they support like local indie bookstores. So like a certain percentage of every sale goes to indie bookstores. So bookshop.com is another one that my books are on. And also it just seems like a cool way to kind of support, local bookstores as much as possible.
Cool.
That's awesome, dude. I found the website you were talking about is the bookshop.org.
Cool.
Yes, that's right. And then I guess I forgot to say, I'm also on, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, not X.
Got to be careful with that one.
I'm looking at you. So I'm on all those. If you search my name, I should pop up probably.
Yeah, cool. And we'll put links down to all of David's website and all that kind of stuff in the post below this, and then the links on YouTube and all that good stuff if you're a viewer. We got a lot of things coming up on this show, and we're going to continue reading Stephen King and his Ghostwriters book next week. For You Like It Darker, tons of short stories. And so we're having some fun with that one, so you can check that out next week and all the other things that we got going on. Robert, where can they find us at?
You can find us over on Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads, and sometimes Twitter at the Nerdy Reads Podcast. Check out our YouTube videos. You can like and subscribe us over there also at the Nerdy Reads Podcast. David, thank you again for your time. You mentioned The Road when you were talking about books earlier, and one of our listeners from the Discord, Solid Matt 13, actually recommended that book to me as well. So now that I've heard two people talk about it, it's on my TBR. I appreciate you.
It's a deep read for sure. It's pretty intense, very unconventional, but very much worth reading through. Yeah.
Sweet. And so, David, this is actually Watson's favorite part of the show. We can never end a show without some advice from our sweet baby Dylan. Hit us, bro.
Oh, he's rubbing the hands together and everything. He's ready.
Yes. Listen. If practice makes perfect, and we all know nobody's perfect, why practice?
Everything David said was not right then. You don't practice writing. Just get up there.
Guys, check out The Misery House. I'm going to rate it a 5 out of 5. I'll have a full review posted on our Goodreads soon. I'm looking forward to diving into The Silent Forest.
That's right. Yep, absolutely. Here in Nerdy Reads Podcast, we enjoy a good story. We believe your story matters, so be good to each other. Stay nerdy, our friends. Say bye, Dylan.
Bye-bye.
See you, David.
Thank you guys so much. Bye.